Hello everybody, and welcome to this new edition on the last day of November 2011 of the Cartoon Flashback. And we're going to be looking at a cartoon. I don't know if I mentioned it before. I may have. If I haven't, then consider this a new thing for you. And if I have, then hey, consider this sort of like a remake. Anyway, what are we talking about here today on the Cartoon Flashback, you may ask? What are we talking about? Well, recently I went to Walgreens here in town to take care of some things for my mom. Basically, develop some photos for one of her college classes that she's taking. And surprisingly, I was also able to purchase a DVD. You see, at Walgreens, they have this little bin, if you will, this bin that has $3.99 and up DVD. So in other words, $3.99, $5.99, whatever. And one of the movies that they had for $3.99 was an Underdog DVD, which is right here. Now, for $3.99, you can't go bad with that. Now, for some of you that don't know who Underdog is, and you're probably wondering, what show is that? When did that come out? And apparently it got damaged a little bit. But apparently, and I know you're asking, when did that come out? Oh, when did that come out? Well, Underdog, believe it or not, came out in the 1960s. That's right. Matter of fact, let me look it up here on my app, on the internet, if you will. But yes, it came out in the 1960s. And for most of you that grew up in the 60s and in the 70s, you know that by now. You would know that, and you would also know that he was one of the characters back then that had his own balloon in the Thanksgiving Day Parade. As a matter of fact, you look up and Google Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade and go to Wikipedia, you'll see what I mean when you scroll down. Now, Underdog basically was a more child-friendly, kind of a more animation, child-friendly adaptation or spoof or parody or inspired cartoon similar to Superman in some ways. Now, it debuted, believe it or not, in 1964, according to Wikipedia. It debuted on October 3rd, 1964 on the NBC network. That's right, the NBC network debuted Underdog, and it was sponsored by General Mills. And it continued in syndication until 1973 for a run of 124 episodes. Now, speaking of those 124, along with these, now don't think, oh wait a minute, did he just say 124 plus those? No. This is 6 of the 124. So basically you're looking at 118 episodes plus these 6, starting in January next year, will be released onto DVD as a complete set, from what I'm reading, by Shout Factory. That's right, Shout Factory, I think they're the ones that are doing it, who have been bringing out some great DVD sets of classic 80s cartoons, and even before that, I'm finally bringing the Underdog cartoon series to DVD. Now, the Underdog cartoon series, of course, is one of those exceptions that now that it's finally getting a digital release of the entire complete series, not just individual volumes, which this is. You know, it's one of those cartoon series that may even benefit from the fact that since it was in the 60s, that it could end up on Blu-ray as well. But we'll just have to wait and see. Now, basically, it sort of follows Underdog basically follows the same formula as Superman in some ways. Underdog, although the difference is his alter ego is called Shoeshine, and Shoeshine kind of shines people's shoes for about 5 cents or 10 cents on the dime, maybe 25 cents. And his love interest is, of course, a news reporter or newscaster called Sweet Polly Purebred. And if you don't know who Sweet Polly Purebred is, let me show you. This right here is Sweet Polly Purebred. This is her. And of course, this is Underdog. Ooh, you don't want to move those, but you'll see those in a minute. But here she is again. This is her, if I can find her. Yeah, that's her right there. And then that's her in there. And I'll explain these in just a bit. Let me set things back up so the DVD can stand back up. Anyway, like I said, that's who she is. Now, just like Superman or any superhero, Underdog had his share of villains, of course. One of his primary villains, if not his number one nemesis, if you will, was Simon Barr Sinister. And of course, just like any villain, his main goal was to conquer the world. Or in this case, not just conquer the world, but his other main goal, I guess we found this out in the movie, was to be taller than everybody else because he was so short. Excuse me for a second. I'll be right back, folks. I'm not trying to get away from this. Had to get something out of my dog's mouth. I didn't want it chewing it, whatever it was. But anyway, Underdog primary villain was, of course, Simon Barr Sinister. Now, if you don't know who Simon Barr Sinister is, if I can find him here somewhere. This is Simon Barr Sinister. This was his main nemesis, and he had another nemesis, which is right there. If I can move these to the side, he had another nemesis right there named Riff Raff, and you can kind of say they were kind of like on equal terms. Well, not totally equal terms. Riff Raff was more like a mobster, if you will. Anyway, like I was saying, my pets are kind of we're getting into a confrontation there, my cat and dog. But anyway, like I was saying, he was sort of like a mobster, so you can kind of think of him almost like a Two-Face, if you will. Now, the biggest difference with Underdog, among any other things between him and Superman, was unlike Superman, he didn't have to go into a phone booth. Well, he did go into a phone booth at most times, to turn into Underdog, but he didn't have to just go into a phone booth and rip off his t-shirt and that was it, and put his glasses down and put his hat away and that was it. No. He took what was known as an energy pill. That's right, an energy pill, red energy pill, which gave him his strength. So he became Underdog. Now, if he didn't take the pill, he would become as Underdog. If he didn't take the pill, or if the pill would wear off, he wouldn't turn back into suicide. No, he would just remain Underdog, but he'd become weak. Now, again, besides that main difference, the series ran for quite some time, for about 9 years, which is a pretty good run. And I have to admit, makes it one of the longest cartoon series in history, due to its popularity, and also due to the fact that I think it has a lot to do with the fact that it's a kind of a clone or parody or a spin-off or inspired one. So Underdog was pretty good. I mean, I wouldn't be a fan of it growing up. Now, the one thing about Underdog back in the 60s, though, just like some shows like his, was they also had integrating segments into it. In other words, other cartoons. You see, Underdog was kind of presented as a serial cartoon, if you will. That's what it was. He was presented as a bit of a serial cartoon. And what that meant was, a serial was basically a, how do I put this? A serial was basically, a cartoon or something, a story arc cut down into 7 to 11-minute parts and then continued the following week. The cartoons that Underdog had with him were a variety of many. He had things like Hunter, Go-Go Gophers, Klondike Cat, Tennessee Tuxedo, Tootie Turtle, Uncle Waldo, I think, was one of them. So you had those kind of characters. I'm trying to find out. Okay, let's see. You had Go-Go Gophers. You had the Hunter. You had Tennessee Tuxedo, World of Commando McBride, Klondike Cat, Go-Go Gophers, like I mentioned, King Leonardo and his short subjects, Tootie Turtle, and that was about it. And they filled up what was known as the middle segments. That's right, they filled up what was known as the middle segments. So in other words, if it was just for a 2-part deal, you would get 2 different Underdog cartoons, basically. Like, for example, it says here, all depending on how it was done, Go Snow was one of the episodes. Now, Go Snow was split up into 4 separated entities, and from what I could tell, they were about 7 minutes long. 4 to 5, 7 minutes long. Well, basically, they were 4-parters, is what they were. Let's just put it that way. Some were just a one-shot deal. Some were, 2-part deal. But most of the time, they were 4 parts. So, in other words, to watch part 3 and 4, you had to watch the next week. Which, I guess as a kid back then, you got a little impatient. You didn't want to wait, but that's what happened. Now, again, for it to run as long as it did, that's a pretty good long run. Although it didn't really get much media attention after. Well, it did get media attention, and I'll talk about that when I come back for part 2.